ever get that feeling? You know, like when you hear a sound and it's somehow both like retro and futuristic all at the same time?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like it's taking you back and pushing you forward musically all at once.
Right.
Like that perfect blend of like raw funk energy, but then with this really cool electronic edge.
Yeah, totally.
Well, that's exactly the kind of sonic space we're diving into today.
Oh, cool.
We're going deep into the world of Roger and Zapp,
Okay, nice.
this groundbreaking band from Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah.
And, you know, their influence, I mean, it still echoes through music today in all these unexpected ways.
For sure. And for this deep dive, you've assembled like a treasure trove of material here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we've got stuff that really lets us unpack how Roger and Zapp like crafted their unique sound, you know, and why it continues to matter, like why it still resonates with people.
Right.
So we're going to be digging into their whole evolution, the innovations they like pioneered,
Yeah.
and also the surprising reach of their music. You know, their footprint. It's broader than you might think.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you, our listener, you know, the one tuning in right now, our mission here is to like extract those essential insights into what made Roger and Zapp so significant. You know,
Right.
we're talking about that instantly recognizable talk box,
Yeah.
those insanely infectious melodies that get stuck in your head for days.
For sure.
And those grooves that just compel you to move. You know, you can't help it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's rewind. Let's go back to the very beginning.
Okay.
What were the initial sparks that led to the creation of Zapp?
Well, it all starts with Roger Troutman's early musical loves, you know, growing up in Dayton.
Yeah.
Deeply immersed in Motown sounds and that like burgeoning funk scene at the time.
Yeah, it was a great time for that.
Oh, yeah. And by the late 1970s, he took the plunge. He formed Zapp.
Okay.
Initially, it was like a backing band,
Interesting.
which included his brothers.
Oh, wow.
And they would support other local artists. You know.
So like a family affair in a way.
Totally, yeah. Real family band.
And this was, you know, happening during like a real golden age for funk in the U.S., right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You had these like massive forces like Parliament Funkadelic,
Right.
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Huge.
They were really pushing the boundaries musically and conceptually.
Totally, yeah.
So how did that environment, that sort of like creative energy, how did that shape Zapp's early development?
I think that like vibrant experimental atmosphere was definitely a catalyst.
Yeah.
You know, it was just this breeding ground, this fertile ground for something like Zapp to emerge.
Right.
You know, early on, they built this strong local following
Okay.
just based on their electrifying live performances.
Yeah.
Musicianship was top-notch.
Yeah.
And even in those early shows, you could start to hear like those nascent elements of their signature blend, you know,
Right.
this interplay between like the organic live instruments and those cutting-edge electronic sounds that were starting to come into their own.
Yeah, it was an interesting time for that, wasn't it?
For sure, a real fusion was happening.
So the live energy was there from the start.
Oh, yeah.
But when did they really capture that unique sound? You know, that sound we all associate with them.
Right. Well, the breakthrough came in the early 1980s
Okay.
with their self-titled debut album, Zapp, released in 1980.
Zapp.
Zapp, exactly. And within that album was a track that just instantly announced their arrival.
Yeah.
It became an instant classic.
Okay.
More bounce to the ounce.
Oh, man, more bounce to the ends. Even saying the title makes you want to move.
Right.
What was it about that track that just, like, exploded and grabbed everyone's attention?
It was this, like, potent combo of elements.
Yeah.
You had this groove that was undeniably rooted in, like, deep funk tradition.
Yeah.
But then layered with these intriguing electronic textures.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, there were Roger's incredibly distinctive talkbox vocals.
Right.
It was like a sound that felt both familiar and completely new.
Yeah.
What stands out to you about that track?
Oh, man. For me, it's the, like, relentless nature of that groove.
Right.
It just doesn't let up.
No, it doesn't.
And then that talk box comes in.
Yeah.
It's almost like another instrument carrying the melody,
Right.
but with this, like, human vocal quality to it.
For sure.
It was unlike anything else on the radio at the time.
Totally unique.
And it wasn't just, like, the diehard funk fans that were hooked, right?
Oh, definitely not.
It crossed over in a big way.
Yeah.
So what do you think it was about the catchiness that gave it that broad appeal?
Well, I think underneath the funk and the electronics was a really strong melodic sensibility, you know?
Yeah.
The main hook of the song, both instrumentally and vocally.
Yeah.
It was just incredibly memorable.
It is.
You know, it tapped into that universal desire for a rhythm and a melody that just feels good.
Oh, yeah.
And that leads us directly to the talk box.
Right.
which became such a defining part of their identity.
Yeah.
Now, for those listening who might not be familiar,
Yeah.
the talkbox is essentially an electronic device
Okay.
that lets a musician manipulate the sound of an instrument, usually a keyboard or a guitar, by shaping the sound with their mouth.
Oh, wow.
They use a tube connected to the device,
Interesting.
and that resulting sound is then projected through a speaker.
Okay.
And Roger Troutman wasn't just using it, he was truly innovating with it.
He wasn't just like, oh, here's a cool effect, let's just throw it on top.
No, not at all.
He was really like weaving it into their sound.
He integrated it into the core of their sound.
Yeah.
It became like another voice in the band,
Yeah.
capable of these incredibly expressive and unique textures that no one else was exploring in that way.
Right.
It was like he gave the machines a human voice, literally.
It's true.
Very cool.
It transcended just being an effect,
Totally.
It became like their sonic fingerprint.
Yes.
Instantly recognizable.
Absolutely.
And it really set them apart from everyone else who was doing funk at the time.
It did, yeah.
Think about those hits, I Can Make You Dance.
Oh, yeah.
Dance Floor.
Classic.
In those tracks, the talk box isn't just like a fleeting embellishment.
Yeah.
It's absolutely essential to the character of the song.
It is.
And it really showcases Roger's just like incredible creativity and mastery of that instrument.
Oh, for sure. He was a true virtuoso.
So they achieved this like massive early success with Zapp and more bounce.
Right.
How do they follow that up?
Yeah.
Did they just like stick rigidly to that formula?
Yeah, good question.
Or did they start to experiment and push their sonic boundaries?
Well, they definitely built upon that strong foundation,
Okay.
but they weren't afraid to explore new sonic territories
Okay.
throughout the 1980s.
So like how did that manifest?
Well, their second album, Zapp 2, in 1982,
Okay.
delivered more of those dance floor anthems,
Yeah,
like Dance Floor and I Can Make You Dance,
of course.
which really solidified that signature sound we've been talking about. It was a
Right.
confirmation,
Yeah.
more bounce. Wasn't a fluke. This was their established style.
Right. They doubled down on what was clearly working.
Exactly.
But I remember their sound evolving. Electronic elements becoming even more prominent as the decade progressed.
Right. And that shift is noticeable in the new Zapp IVU from 1985.
Okay, the new Zapp IDU.
This album really embraced synths and a more overtly electronic approach to production.
Nice.
And it gave us Computer Love,
Computer Love.
which for many I think remains one of their most enduring and iconic tracks.
Oh, for sure.
What makes that song stand out to you?
I mean, Computer Love's such a perfect encapsulation of that blend of funk
Right.
with those almost futuristic electronic textures.
Yeah.
The lyrical themes, the synth melodies, the way the groove still hits so hard despite the more electronic instrumentation.
Yeah.
It felt like they were tapping into something, almost prescient.
Right.
And it's definitely a track that has proven its timelessness.
It really has.
It's aged so well.
Absolutely. It perfectly synthesized those elements.
Yeah.
And it went on to become incredibly influential,
Yeah.
not just within funk and R&B, but beyond.
Yeah.
And as the decade continued, with albums like Zapp V in 1989,
Okay.
featuring tracks such as I Want to Be Your Man and Slow and Easy,
Yeah.
you could observe them, continuing to refine their sound,
Right.
exploring different tempos, moods, while always retaining those core Zapp characteristics.
Right. They never lost their essence.
Exactly.
And they even pushed into the early 90s with Zapp 6 in 1991.
It did, yeah.
That album maybe didn't generate the same level of like huge hits,
Right.
but it still showed this willingness to experiment, to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
Yeah,
While it might have received, more mixed critical reception,
sure.
it does illustrate their ongoing commitment to pushing their musical boundaries,
Right.
even as musical trends were shifting.
Yeah.
But it's undeniably their output in the 1980s that truly cemented their legacy.
Yeah.
And that legacy, as you mentioned earlier, extends far beyond just the funk scene itself.
Oh, without question.
Yeah.
I mean, their impact on the development of hip-hop and R&B, it's undeniable.
It's huge.
Sheer number of artists who have sampled their tracks over the years.
I know, it's crazy.
It's a real testament to just the enduring quality of their grooves and their melodies.
That really is remarkable.
And Computer Love serves as like a prime example of that cross-genre influence.
Right.
It's been sampled countless times
Oh, yeah.
by some of the biggest names in hip-hop,
Absolutely.
from Dr. Dre to Snoop Dogg.
For sure.
That one track alone has had this incredible second life, being
Wow.
reimagined and integrated into a whole new generation of music.
Totally.
Why do you think their music lent itself so well to sampling?
I think it's partly the strength of those foundational grooves, you know?
Yeah.
They're so solid and infectious
They are.
that they provide the perfect, like, bedrock for new musical ideas.
Right.
And those distinctive melodic hooks,
Yeah.
often carried by the talk box or the synths,
Right.
they're instantly recognizable.
Yeah.
And they add this unique flavor to any track they're sampled in.
Yeah, it's like they created these sonic building blocks
Yeah.
that other artists could then use to create something new.
Exactly.
And you can really hear that DNA in the emergence of 90s G-funk.
Oh, yeah, totally.
That smooth, laid-back vibe, those melodic bass lines, the occasional talk box.
All there.
It's all there. It's
Yeah.
like a direct lineage.
Artists like Warren G. and Nate Dogg really took those core Zapp elements.
Right.
The deep melodic bass lines, the influence of the talk box, that overall smooth and funky feel,
Yeah.
and made them central tenets of the G-funk sound.
Yeah.
You can almost trace a direct lineage.
Totally. And their influence doesn't stop in the 90s, does it?
It doesn't, no.
Even in contemporary R&B,
Yeah.
you can still hear echoes of that Zapp sound.
Absolutely. Numerous contemporary R&B artists.
Yeah.
You know, names like Usher, Beyonce, Justin Timberlake.
Huge names.
They've embraced that funk-infused sound that Roger and Zapp were so instrumental in popularizing.
Right.
It demonstrates how their innovations continue to resonate and inspire new generations of musicians, you know, ensuring that their musical DNA persists.
So while Zapp was this collective force,
Right.
Roger Troutman was also pursuing a pretty significant solo career concurrently.
He was, yeah.
How did that fit into the overall picture?
Well, alongside his pivotal work with Zapp, he released several solo albums,
Okay.
such as The Many Facets of Roger in 1981
Okay.
and Unlimited in 1987.
Unlimited.
These solo projects really allowed him to showcase his versatility
Yeah.
as a vocalist, songwriter, instrumentalist,
Yeah.
sometimes exploring slightly different sonic textures than he did with the band.
It's like he needed that additional outlet.
Yeah, maybe so.
And he achieved some real success with his solo work too, right?
Oh, yeah, he
I
did.
mean, he had some pretty big hits
Yeah.
that perhaps explored like slightly different musical avenues.
Precisely. His cover of I Heard It Through the Grapevine was a substantial hit.
Yeah.
And tracks like In the Mix also highlighted his ability to blend his signature funk style with those more contemporary R&B sounds that were emerging at the time.
Yeah, it was a great time for that.
Oh, yeah, it was. And his solo career provided an outlet to explore different collaborations and musical ideas,
Right.
further broadening his impact and reach within the music industry.
It's remarkable how much he accomplished both within Zapp and as a solo artist,
It really is.
which makes the events of 1999 all the more shocking and profoundly sad.
It was an immense loss for the entire music community.
Yeah.
Roger Troutman's death was a true tragedy,
Yeah.
and it undeniably marked the end of a significant chapter for Zapp.
Yeah.
He was a genuine pioneer, and his passing was deeply mourned by his fans and fellow musicians alike.
Yeah, it felt like a unique voice had been silenced.
It absolutely did.
But, you know, despite that incredibly sad ending their contributions to the musical landscape,
Yeah.
they continue to be celebrated and recognized, right?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Roger and Zapp have rightfully earned their place as true pioneers of funk.
Absolutely.
Their innovative and distinctive approach has had a lasting impact,
Right.
influencing countless artists across a vast spectrum of genres.
Yeah,
They cultivated a dedicated and passionate fan base
for sure.
that continues to appreciate and cherish their unique sound.
And it's great to see that there's been this resurgence of interest in their music in recent years.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
You know, with new generations of listeners discovering those grooves and that unmistakable sound.
It's awesome. It really is.
When you analyze their body of work,
Yeah.
what were some of the key musical techniques and innovations beyond just the talk box
Right.
that truly set them apart and made them so influential?
Well, while the talk box is certainly their most recognizable sonic signature,
Yeah.
their early and skillful adoption of electronic elements,
Yeah.
like synthesizers and drum machines, was absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
They were among the first to seamlessly integrate these technologies with traditional live instrumentation
Right.
in a way that felt organic and deeply funky.
And it worked.
It did. Yeah. And let's not overlook their exceptional talent for crafting those incredibly catchy and memorable hooks and melodies.
Yeah.
Those are the elements that truly stick with you long after the song ends.
Those are the earworms.
Yeah, exactly.
And culturally, they played a big role, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Not just in keeping the spirit of funk alive, but in essentially laying the foundation for entirely new sonic territories.
Absolutely. they were undeniably key figures in that post-disco funk revival period.
Right.
And as we've discussed, their pioneering influence on the development of G-funk is irrefutable.
Totally.
Their collaborations with other influential artists,
Yeah.
such as their work with George Clinton,
Of course.
further solidify their position within the broader funk landscape.
Right.
And the extensive sampling of their music within hip-hop
Yeah.
provides undeniable evidence of their cross-genre impact.
It does, and even though we tragically lost Roger,
Yeah.
the numerous tributes and
Yeah.
the continued sampling and referencing of their music, it really underscores the profound and lasting effect that he and Zapp had on the entire musical world.
It does. His passing was a significant loss. But the ongoing recognition and celebration of their collective musical achievements
Yeah.
serves as a powerful and enduring testament to their remarkable contributions.
So as we bring this deep dive to a close,
Yeah.
it's abundantly clear that Roger and Zapp were so much more than just a band producing catchy funk tunes.
Right.
They were true innovators, weren't they?
Absolutely.
They took that core essence of funk,
Yeah.
masterfully blended it with cutting-edge electronic sounds and R&B sensibilities,
Totally.
and in doing so created something entirely original and incredibly influential
They did.
that continues to inspire.
Yeah.
That instantly recognizable talkbox sound, those unforgettable melodies, those relentlessly infectious grooves.
Right.
Those are the lasting hallmarks of their impact on music.
They weren't simply playing music. They were actively shaping the future sound of funk and electronic music as we know it.
And their legacy lives on through the countless artists they inspired.
It does.
Through the fact that their music continues to bring so much joy
Yeah.
and get people moving all over the world.
For sure.
So for you listening, consider this.
Yeah.
How often do we see the most groundbreaking and influential music emerge from this seemingly unexpected fusion of different genres?
That's a good question.
Right, and who are the artists today
Yeah.
who are pushing those same kinds of boundaries,
Yeah.
creating entirely new sonic landscapes?
It's fascinating to think about.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's something to ponder.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.